What's up, what's up? It's your boy. So check it out. Today I want to talk about statistics. My last post, I actually dived into statistics a bit, but it was actually about a specific topic, and I want to kind of elaborate a little bit, not about that topic, about statistics in general, because it applies to everything, and people don't realize how much it applies to everything. I had a great professor back when I was an undergrad. I had a great mathematical statistics professor, and he told us on the very first day, he's like, I'm going to teach you everything I can about statistics, but first thing I'm going to teach you is there's two things you're going to do with statistics. Two things. If you get a degree at the statistics, you're going to do one of two things. Either you're going to use it for good and you're going to become a teacher, or you're going to use it for evil. And then he broke it down a little more, and he said, ultimately, statistics, what happens is people can use statistics to prove anything. And the way they do is they skew the data. They take information and they leave out bits of information, so that way they get the result that they're looking for. And then when they get the result they're looking for, they pitch it to you as this, that, or whatever it is they're trying to convince you of, whatever it is they're trying to sell you, whatever it is they're trying to manipulate, they will absolutely manipulate. And ultimately what ends up happening is statisticians sell out to the highest bidder. That's sad, but it's real. This has been going on for decades and decades and decades. It's not an uncommon or new thing. Now, lots of statisticians actually care about their job, but most of them, what they're doing is they care about the math. They care about this, that, what, So if you come to them and say, hey, I need a guy who's gonna take this data and crunch these numbers, then that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna take that data and crunch those. Well, does that data actually support this? That's where you get into a sticky situation. So they leave out information, and this happens all the time. I want to give you a great example. This is one of my favorite examples, and I had actually the same statistic professor talked about it, but I had another professor talk about it at some point a couple of years later. But a great example is back in the 50s. Yeah. So back in the 50s, they said Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, everybody knows Coca-Cola. You got Coca-Cola in your house. You know what I'm saying? Everybody said that back then they said Coca-Cola. This was national news, no less. It was news. It was, it was a real thing. It's going to sound crazy, but hear me out. Coca-Cola prevented polio. How could Coca-Cola prevent polio? Coca-Cola prevented polio. Let's break that down. So what they did was they took these statistics. What they did is they took all these different countries, right? All these different countries, and they broke them down. They're like, okay, well, let's take data from each country. How many of these countries have polio? Have reported cases of polio? Then they took all these different countries and they said, well, how many of these countries have Coca-Cola? There was no cases reported of polio in these countries, like America, that had Coca-Cola. So then there was all these third world countries that were having some outbreaks of polio, and they were like, well, they have polio in this country, in this country, in this country, and these countries, they don't have Coca-Cola, and all these countries that do have Coca-Cola, they obviously don't have polio. So the data, if we analyze the data, the analysis comes back that Coca-Cola prevents polio, obviously, right? How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. What they left out was all the other variables, which you would think you're not allowed to do that. People do it every single day. It's only when they're called out about it that these things, it took another scientist in medical development that said, hey, wait, that doesn't make sense, and let's break it down. And the missing variable was money. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? They were being bought? No, it means they were leaving out the variable of money, the variable that money had an effect on this. These countries, which countries have Coca-Cola? Not third world countries. Third world countries don't have Coca-Cola. Third world countries have no money for Coca-Cola. But what also are these third world countries that have no money? What else are they lacking? They're lacking money for medicine. They're lacking money for medicine, clean water. They're lacking money for, proper running water. They're lacking money for dietary things. They're lacking money for vaccinations. They're lacking money for all these different things. They have no money, therefore they have more cases of polio because they have no means of preventing said disease, right? But it was just easy to take these data points and say that obviously all the countries that have Coca-Cola don't have polio, and the countries that don't have them, there you go. Correlation right there. It's consistent. But they left out all the variables and therefore lied. Now, they can walk away saying, hey, I didn't lie. I didn't lie at all because all my data is true, right? That's what happens every day. It happens with the stock market. It happens with investments. It happens with real estate. It happens all the time. It happens with marketing analysis. It happens in modern medicine. It happens in every field all over the place. Now, like I said, the easy one that I love using that example, even though that was about medicine. This isn't about medicine. It was mostly actually about money, but a lot of people just classify it into the medical category because it was regarding a disease. But it's a simple example because most people today, if you told them Coca-Cola prevented polio, they'd be like, dude, that's stupid. How could that possibly be? And you know what it is? It is completely stupid because Coca-Cola couldn't possibly. But at the time, they were like, well, I guess. I mean, it's on the news. Now, we have a lot more skeptics today. We have a lot more skeptics today because, first of all, we're not in the 50s and we don't have just one news channel. We have multiple news channels, we have multiple websites, we have multiple social media platforms, and everybody has their own channel like I do here. So we have all these different opinions, thoughts, and analysis, just commentary on so many different things. So you have a lot more people who are real big skeptics. They're like, well, I don't believe anything. I don't believe what the news tells me. Or I only believe this channel, I only believe that channel, I only believe this, that, whatever. They only believe what they want to believe and they don't believe anything else. That is happening more and more today. So you don't get as many people who just buy into the idea that, oh, obviously Coca-Cola prevents polio. But you do get it happening all the time, though. You do. You get it more than you would realize, even though it's not as much as it was then. Because you have people coming out saying, oh, well, this is bad for you, that's bad for you. This is a bad investment, this is a good investment. This is... You shouldn't believe, let me show you the data of why investing in real estate is a horrible idea. And then you've got someone like, it happened in 2020 and 2021. People were saying real estate was a bad idea back then. And it was because a lot of banks were honestly struggling and giving out loans was just weird. And we were in a pandemic. And so, but then you got people like Cardone was like, what are you talking about, man? If you know how to do it right. He's like, I'm making moves right now. He bought more in 2021 than he had bought in the 3 years previously. He knows what he's doing. So the data wasn't wrong, but the data wasn't the full picture. I got a buddy who's in real estate, great guy, really, really, really smart guy. And I talked to him multiple times about it, and I talked to him about the houses that I saw available in Austin. And I was like, dude, why is this house available? Why is this house selling for this much? And this house has been for sale and it won't sell. And it seems like, the price is, not crazy. And then that house over there, it's like $300,000 over what should be reasonable, and still they paid more than the asking price. How? And he said, because you got to know, because when in real estate, what you're doing is you're always selling a client. You're not selling a house. That is so strange, but it's a real thing. And not every agent works this way, but it's a real way that it does work. He's not crazy. He's not wrong, and he knows what he's doing. I think I'm going to do another post probably in the next couple of days. I'm going to try to do another post on real estate and just talk about that aspect, because there's lots of people that have different takes on real estate and have different perspectives. But the reality is, when it comes down to it, it's not that the different perspectives are wrong. It's that they're different people and have different approaches. If they're successful, they're obviously making it work. So we'll then dive into that a little bit more. So y'all be sure to stay tuned. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding your bell, get your notifications. You don't want to miss when I do that post. But for right now, let's get back to this. And like I said, these data points, what they're saying isn't a lie. It's like, okay, well, is it a bad time to buy in real estate? Maybe if everything lines up this way. If everything lines up this way, bad move, don't buy it. And then, but if everything's lining up this way, could you make a move and actually come out ahead and come out profitable, come out having a good home for your family, or maybe having a great investment property that you're turning into a rental property, or you're gonna flip or something? Is it possible? Absolutely. So like what I'm saying is, ultimately, when a lot of these data things are coming out, all these statistics, and you see these headlines, and you see stuff in the news, and you see stuff on social media, and whether it's about medicine, whether it's about real estate, whether it's about the stock market, take the time to realize that 90% of the time, and I'm being very conservative, I would say way more than 90, but let's say at least 90, just so you can think I'm not a liar and you can take your own time to do some research. But at least 90% of the time, they're not giving you all the information. There's so many variables that are left out. There's so many data points that are not included. And there's so many outliers. Like, they'll take an outlier and say, well, this happened. Well, it happened. It's considered an outlier because that only happened 5% of the time. So let's take that out as an outlier. Let's not say it didn't happen. Let's say it's an outlier. And an outlier in statistics is something that can happen, but the likelihood is small. Now, in medical statistics, what most people don't know about medical statistics is 5% of all the data is considered a margin of error and can be just left out altogether. It's not called the outlier. It's called let's not count it, because it's a margin of error. And see, my faith allows me to see that as not a lie, as reasonable. And the reason is because I know that God created us, and God created us all so individual and so unique that at the end of the day, there could never be one type of cough medicine or sleep aid or stomach medicine or headache pill or any vaccine or any supplement, anything like that. There's not one single one that's going to work for every single person, because our bodies are so incredibly unique. Now, like I said, in medical statistics, what they do is they take 5% and they just remove it from the data altogether. They're legally, according to the CDC and the FDA, they're allowed to do that. What they do is they take 5% and it's just not valid anymore. They just remove it. They say 5% is gone. Now, so if I tell you there's this new medicine on the market, and this medicine is 98% effective, it's actually about 93, because 5% of those data points have been completely removed. Margin of error. Margin of error. And in every statistical analysis, there's always a margin of error, but in every other method of statistics, the margin is always much smaller, and the margin has to be disclosed. In medicine, it doesn't. In medicine, 5% is removed as margin for error, and you don't gotta disclose it. Why? Because if you ever disclosed it, no one would ever take a medicine. No one would ever take a vitamin. No one would ever take a supplement. No one would ever take a treatment method, because there's 5% that doesn't work. That's scary. And if you've got a data point that says, oh, well, this particular type of leukemia treatment, or this particular type of treatment for, I don't know, MRSA, what, any type of treatment that they give you, and they say a lot of treatments got lower percentages because they're treatments, they're not actually medicines, they're just different. And so those data points, a lot of times doctors, nurses, they'll come to you and they'll say, hey, this has got an 89% effective rate. It's really risky. 89 means 84. 84. But see, the thing is it's not the doctor that's lying to you. Some people are going to say, well, the doctor lied to you, the nurse lied to you. No, they didn't. Because the doctor doesn't even know that. Most doctors don't even know that. Most nurses don't know that. Because it's not something they have to know. Because they didn't have to go to, honestly, I don't know all the levels that every doctor goes through. Some doctors do go through statistics and stuff, but I'm sure that not all of them do. But nurses don't have to. They don't have to take statistics. They don't have to take mathematical statistics. They don't have to take diagnostic statistic courses to understand where these data points come from. They have to understand how to read. They have to understand how to administer treatments. They have to understand what their job is. Their job is incredibly complicated. It's very difficult. I am not in any way taking anything away from a nurse or a doctor. But I'm saying that statistics in itself, did you know the University of Alabama, I mean, it's Alabama, so I don't know what that says for it, but the University of Alabama is the only university I know of, but I'm aware, I've been informed that there's like 2 or 3 other universities, but I don't know which ones. But the University of Alabama actually recognizes statistics because it's so complicated. They actually recognize statistics as a foreign language. If you're going for a degree plan and your degree plan requires you 6 hours or 12 hours, like if you're going for science, a lot of times it'll be 3 or 6. If you're going for a liberal arts degree, a lot of times it'll be 9 or 12 hours of a foreign language. Did you know you can actually take statistics in place of Spanish or French or anything like that? Because learning how to analyze statistics is so complicated and convoluted that it's like learning another language. It's not. I remember that when I took mathematical statistics, my professor, not only did he break down that interesting story and his idea of what you'll use statistics for, but he also broke it down to the fact that, look, you think this is a math class, I promise you that it is not. We had 2 people get up, and by the end of the first class, we had 2 people get up and by the middle of the second week, we had half of our class was gone. Statistics is complicated. It's tricky. Not everybody understands it. So not everybody's just flat out lying to you. I don't want you to walk away from this and say, well, everybody's just a liar. No, I'm not saying they're liars. I'm saying a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people didn't go to school to understand statistics and experimental design. A lot of people actually became doctors and things like that, and then decided that because I'm a doctor, I can do research. These doctors with their prestigious degrees may not have a background in research or statistics, but they've decided because they already have a degree and they already have this PhD and stuff that they can go back and do things that they're not actually, it's not exactly their field. I'm in no way on a level of a PhD, but I actually spent several years at the University of Texas just understanding statistics and just understanding experimental design. I spent over 2.5 years as a research assistant in the social psychology research lab, and it was the most profound, enlightening experience of my life. I learned so much just about really analyzing data and knowing how to decipher when I'm missing something, how to decipher when I'm being misled or tricked. Like I said, sometimes I do believe people are trying to trick you and mislead you, but sometimes I do believe that a lot of them are just taking data. They're taking data and they're like, well, I see a correlation, so therefore it must mean A, B, or C, right? No. Because you find a correlation, it could honestly be a coincidence. What are the other variables? Most people don't also understand that when you actually formulate a scientific experiment and you want to break down these data, you want to figure out if that correlation is valid, what you got to do is ask the opposite question. Rarely does that happen. In real research, it does. But these published things that you see on Google, DuckDuckGo, Safari, you see it on social media, people on their random blogs and stuff, they publish things on LinkedIn. Just because it's on LinkedIn doesn't mean it's profound. Doesn't mean it's backed up. So a lot of these people don't understand that you pose the opposite question. You never pose the question you're looking for. If you're looking for this, okay, you're saying, well, this particular pivot in the economy based on, let's say, based on okay. Let's find a correlation here. Stock market was going up in 2021, stock market was going up, right? Housing market was fluctuating. It was volatile, actually. There was lots of housing all over the place that was super high. There was ones that were super low. It didn't make sense. It was really weird. It seemed like people couldn't get their finger on it. So you can take the correlation. You can take the fact that the housing market was volatile. It made the stock market more stable and more viable. Does that make any sense? But if you collect enough data points throughout the months and throughout the quarters, throughout 2020 and then throughout 2021, get some data and you can see how it transitions. You can see the moments that this curve went here, and because this curve went here, this one went here, right? So as the housing market got more volatile, went up, went down, went up, went down, went up, went down, right? That this began like this and curved up with the stock market, right? So you can find some correlation there. You can start plotting points and say, well, this point here, this point here, this point here, this point here, this point. And you can say those correlate, so therefore that's consistent, right? That didn't have, the housing market and the stock market had nothing to do with each other. They're both affected by our economy, and they both, the economy affected both of them affected how the economy was running at the time and what was happening in America. But there was also the several other variables that you could leave out. Like, what about the fact that we were in a pandemic? We were all at home. People lost jobs. People were trying to scrounge to see how they were going to make ends meet. How can I make quick cash? So you could take any of these data points and say, well, was it, so you think, let's say you believe that the housing market affected the stock market. So that's your hypothesis. The housing market's fluctuation affected the rise in the stock market. So that's my hypothesis. So my question is, let's say, did the pandemic affect the stock market? So you have to ask an opposite question, different. Or you can ask a question like, oh, no, I'm sorry. Let's do a better question. Because that's not really opposite. That's just a transitional. That's different. So that would be finding a different correlation. But an opposing question would be more like, the stock market or the housing market had no effect on the stock market, right? So you have to, and then you have to collect data points to show how that housing market had no effect. And if you can collect data points to prove that true, then your hypothesis is false. Most people don't understand that concept though. What you're doing is you formulate a hypothesis, you ask an opposing question, and then you take data points to try to prove your question. And if it proves your question, it disproves your hypothesis. If it comes out contrary and it disproves your hypothesis, or it disproves your question, then it proves your hypothesis valid. Doesn't prove it true, it proves that there is significant data and there's evidence to suggest the possibility that this is true. You never actually prove anything. You find evidence to suggest. Man, I don't want to go on too long. I'm sure that some of y'all have, I hope some of y'all have enjoyed this. I hope this is giving y'all some things to think about, but I'm sure some of y'all have already checked out, and I don't want to go on too long and lose some of y'all, but I just want to give y'all some perspective when you're trying to analyze things, regardless of whether it's your family, your life, where you should live, whether I should invest in this company, that company, the stock market, anything, the real estate, how you should market things. Marketing is a good one. You got to get a lot of statistics when you're marketing to see if your marketing is working. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Like I said, when it comes down to it, know what you're reading and don't get lost in the statistics that data's left out. It's your boy. I got love for y'all. I do. I hope this helped y'all. I do. I enjoy talking about this, so if y'all got questions, y'all got comments, please leave them below and let's break it down more. If y'all got questions about how to do analysis or just reading into what you can pick apart, if y'all have articles or anything like that you'd like to share the links to the articles below and say, hey, let's talk about this one. Let's see if we can pick some things apart. We'll have some fun. We'll do this together. It'll be exciting. I love this thing. This kind of stuff. I'm kind of a big nerd. But research and data collection and analysis like this is one of the things that I really get super excited about. That and investing, and absolutely love money. All right, so let's follow the money. Let's follow the data. Let's see where we're going. It's your boy. I'm out. Y'all have a great day.